And what's up? Welcome in, Gamecock Nation, Friday episode of the show. We are calling this the official South Carolina versus ECU preview show. So whether you are joining us live here on Friday afternoon or after the fact on the podcast, or maybe you're even riding up to Greenville, North Carolina today and it's Saturday morning, you're getting ready for the game. No matter how you listen, where you listen, what you're listening on, we appreciate your support, and we appreciate the support of Clint Hammond, our presenting sponsor, here on GC Live. You see the banner over our head every single day if you watch on YouTube. Clint Hammond is the mortgage network guy here in Columbia. ClintHammond.com is how you can find his information. 803-771-6933. The NMLS number is 71597. And you can find his, more information at chammond@mortgagenetwork.com if you want to shoot Clint an email. Again, if you are in that market, we just want you to give Clint a shot, give him a chance, and I promise you he will take great care of you. We've talked about this game all week. We've analyzed it from many different sides and points of view so far, but this will be, I guess, our final take together here, Chris, on South Carolina versus ECU. And what truly, I mean, you can sort of, the thing about that's great about college football, man, is you can dive down to every little tiny detail in a game, or you can go back big picture. And today I was thinking about the big picture of this game and the fact that South Carolina does travel to Georgia next week. South Carolina does host Kentucky the week after. And South Carolina, as we know, is 1-0 right now. So to continue the momentum, we know at some point South Carolina is going to face some adversity as far as a loss at some point this year. But to continue that momentum that they're riding right now, to really put themselves in a position, Vegas doesn't really put South Carolina in a position to be a bowl team this year. We have put that, I would say, as sort of a very achievable top type goal for South Carolina to make progress this season. But if you really want to get ahead of yourselves and start to look at that schedule and sort of check off potential wins, check off likely wins, check off likely losses. There kind of needs to be a W beside this name, or beside this game, I should say, South Carolina versus ECU, if the Gamecocks are going to be in a position to where you could project them to go to a bowl at the end of this season and get 6 wins.
Lots to still learn about this team, but you're right. We knew going into this season that even with all those questions, even without the ball having been kicked off, without game one happening, you would think South Carolina is beating Eastern Illinois, right? So you kind of chalk that one up as the 1-0. Now we get through that game. We get our first look at this team. We still don't know a lot. There's just a lot of different things. One reason, opponent, competition level is not what South Carolina will see for much of this season. We've talked about all that. But if you do go through, East Carolina is one of those winnable games on the schedule for South Carolina this year. And to be honest, to be realistic, you look at the schedule, and I agree with you. South Carolina is going to face that adversity in terms of a loss, and it's probably coming sooner than later, given how good Georgia is, how much of a challenge Kentucky is going to be. Then you start looking at the rest of the teams that they're going to play. There are a lot of games that South Carolina will not be favored in. There's some that maybe they're not favored in, but you kind of chalk it up as a could win or a toss-up type game. There are going to be some that you go, I don't really see it. There's going to be some, Vanderbilt, for instance, to pile onto them for the third straight day, I think. That's one that you put in kind of that's a win category, although we'll see when we get to that point. But, yeah, the East Carolina game, Wes, I mean, we've said it. Step up in competition. There's some unsettling things about this matchup for South Carolina, but they've also got some things where you feel like they have an advantage. So to have that type of season that South Carolina wants in year one of the Shane Beamer era, you don't want to be playing from behind by needing to beat, a Georgia or Florida or Clemson or somebody like that in order to become bowl eligible this year and to achieve that goal. So this is one of those games where, you need to make it happen.
You said there were some unsettling things about this game. Let's go there first. What is the biggest concern if you're on South Carolina staff right now, you're getting ready for tomorrow. Hay is pretty much in the barn at this point. Your game plan better be good because you've already put it in. What are you most worried about as you lay down tonight if you are on this South Carolina staff?
I think, Wes, it's just maybe East Carolina's skill position guys and their quarterbacks. So those components of their offense may unsettle you because – and there are other things. So there are some concerns that I carry, for instance, on South Carolina's offense in this matchup, downfield passing, things like that. We can dive into that too. But just to try to narrow it down to one, you've got a solid running back in Rajai Harris. You've got Keaton Mitchell, who's very fast. And you've got a quarterback that if you don't contain him, he can run, he can throw on the run, he can hurt you from the pocket. He's not afraid to take one-on-one shots. South Carolina's defense – it had a very good performance in week one, particularly up front. There were some things on the back end that, maybe they could have become an issue, but it never got there. This week, it will probably get there. There will be some one-on-one stops that the defensive backs have to make. There will be more open field tackles against more skilled guys this week. So I think that's the one that you worry about the most. Now, there are several others within that or aside from that, but that's probably the one I would pick.
I think kind of in the lines of what you're talking about, man. South Carolina's secondary, the fact that and we have a comment weighing in right now from H-Man here on YouTube, says the secondary is his biggest concern. To me, it's about the fact that you've got a guy in Holton Ahlers, their quarterback, who will buy time and then hurt you down the field. And he can run the football. He's got tremendous size as far as being able to do that. He's not one of these guys that's just going to easily go down. You have to go tackle him. You can't just hit him. 6'3", 230 pounds, has a physical mindset, I think, but he really hurts you in that he gives his receivers a chance to go make some plays. He's going to scramble around. He's going to throw 50-50 balls. That makes him – I put him sort of as a wild card, man, because you're watching. If you're a defense coordinator, sometimes you're going to do everything right, and he's still just going to find a way to make a play. But there will be other times where he's going to put ECU in a situation where maybe he scrambles a little bit too long, takes a bad loss. Maybe he throws a 50-50 ball that doesn't bounce the right way, and it creates a turnover. There will be opportunities for South Carolina to make plays here. I think for the defense – you weren't really tested last week by a bunch of guys from a speed standpoint like you're going to see with Keaton Mitchell this week, from a size standpoint like you're going to see with Ahlers at quarterback this week. From a receiver standpoint, they have a nice mix. They have a slot receiver who's doing it for the short guys everywhere. He's like 5'7". But then they have a big 6'2", 220-pound sort of NFL-style outside receiver. So, I think they do have some guys that can make you miss, some guys that can sort of test your fundamentals on defense, which I don't know that South Carolina was necessarily tested that way last week. So if you have a chance to get Ahlers on the ground, do you do it? If you have a chance with the ball in the air to make a big play, do you just deflect it and it hits the ground, or do you pull off the interception that changes the game? To me, these are the things that it's kind of like if a team plays a team 10 times, you're going to have different results every single time as far as how a game plays out, because it comes down to who makes those plays in these moments. So for me, I've gone back and forth as far as my final prediction. I have South Carolina winning, but I've gone back and forth if I think it's going to be a game where they sort of can pull away a little bit and breathe a sigh of relief and maybe win by a couple scores versus, are they going to have to really gut this thing out? But I sort of go back to those turnovers, and is it something that swings the game towards South Carolina in a possible comfortable win, or is it something that swings the game towards ECU and gets that crowd going, gives them something to be fired up about, and sort of keeps them in the game? I think starting fast and sort of just operating efficiently right off the bat could be sort of a built-in key for this game. You're muted, Chris.
I did it. It's been a while, Wes. So I'll go back to, the biggest storyline that we've been talking about as far as South Carolina's advantage is their defensive line. So I go back to that as being the difference in this game. The defensive line will have to, in my mind, have a very strong performance to win, and I think that can happen. I do think, ECU is certainly going to scheme some ways to account for that. That's going to be their coaching staff. I'm sure that's their huge focus. They're looking at the same tape we are, or more, and much more. And they're going to, try to limit that. They're going to try to get their guys on the perimeter. They're going to try to get their backs involved. They're going to, try to utilize Holton Naylor's rushing ability to get himself out of trouble. And so I anticipate there'll be some types of adjustments there, and then South Carolina will have to counter. But I do think the defensive line can still have a good game. So I've got South Carolina winning too. I'm playing it a little bit more conservatively, Wes, on the score, just because, look, would I be surprised if on Monday we're talking about a multi-touchdown South Carolina win? I would not be. But I just think right now, with some of the questions that South Carolina, you use prove-it mode all the time is what you say, Wes. They are still in prove-it mode on some of the aspects that they need to take, another step forward on the field as a team. And they may prove those, but they need to do it against East Carolina, not against Eastern Illinois. And frankly, they didn't even prove some of those things against Eastern Illinois for whatever reason. So I'm going a little bit more conservatively in terms of margin of victory, but I've also got South Carolina winning.
Yeah, I have actually a long list of things I wrote down as far as just my overall keys to this game. Some of it we've already talked about. I said defensive line take over the game. If the defensive line takes over this game, like you're talking about, yes, I'm sure ECU will try to adjust. Maybe that means a little bit different scheme of things. Maybe that means more. They tried to throw some halfback screens to sort of redirect the rush and stuff like that. With Keaton Mitchell, you have to get your guys out there and get to him and not let him get into space. So at the end of the day, though, that matchup has to go in South Carolina's favor. Limit mistakes, that's always a key, but certainly for a team, Beamer said it, man, if you're a freshman, a sophomore, or one of those guys transferring in, this is the biggest road crowd you've ever played in front of. So manage that. Manage the communication. Manage the situation. And don't let what will really be a crowd that this is their Super Bowl. They haven't had an SEC team play in Greenville, North Carolina in over a decade, I think. So this matters to the fans. This matters to the students. You're going to see a riled up atmosphere. Can you slow them down? Can you give them a reason to sit down? If you're South Carolina, contest the 50-50 balls, attack down the field more. That to me is something that when you say some things we didn't see in week one, that's probably right where my head goes. But, Chris, I do think that everybody talks about the one deep ball we saw early in the game. They didn't really attempt a ton of deep balls either. I think it was that one deep throw that actually truly I would count as a deep ball. So some of that you say, well, are these the same issues that we saw South Carolina have last year? Some of that you say, well, it's still just an unknown. It's not a negative yet, because I think we're going to see South Carolina implement that a little bit more. My guess is some of that is just the way the game played out. Maybe there were some deep balls called that just didn't get out. Maybe there's some deep balls where it ends up going to an underneath guy. Maybe as the game went along, just like they said they sort of scrapped playing to Kerryon Joyner more at quarterback, some of that stuff just sort of got scrapped when you're up by 30 points. So I'll be curious. Do we see more downfield passing, deep balls? I would say we absolutely see it attempted. But then the question is, are you able to hit them? Can some guys go make some plays for you? We know Jalen Brooks can get open deep. He has proved that actually in his short time at South Carolina. But can you just reel it in to where the throw is a little bit better, where the catch is a little bit better, and start hitting some of those deep balls?
Yeah, and that is. I mean, I think game one it didn't even appear to be as much of an emphasis. Not that South Carolina was not vanilla in game one. I don't think. We saw a lot of different formations. We saw different types of running plays. We saw different personnel packages. We saw DeCarron Joyner come in the game. But one thing we didn't see is I don't know that we did see a huge emphasis on the downfield passing game. And for the reasons you laid out, some of them, I'm sure there were other ones called that just didn't hit at times. There were some plays where South Carolina had multiple guys open, and against Eastern Illinois. But it is going to have to be a bigger part of this team's offensive attack, and I do think that starts this week. So it is still a question. I don't think it's something where you say, there's no concern at all, just because, again, it hasn't been proven by this group. This is a group of receivers that, all came into this 2021 season in that prove-it mode. Guys that have had pretty good off seasons, in DeCarron Joyner and Brooks and Josh Vann, the starters. There's some other guys vying for time. These are all guys that have talent. Like you said, Brooks, he can get open. Vann, very interesting skill set, very talented skill set. Joyner, we know that he's made some strides as a receiver. Did not have a great game one, right? But has talent to where he can do some things to help this team. But it is still prove-it mode, especially in the deep ball category. So will we see more out of that? I think we'll at least see more attempts out of it. And if they can hit some, I think that'll bode well for the rest of the season as far as, feeling better about that aspect of this team.
Yeah, we saw, I think the biggest, maybe the most positive takeaway you could find from the receivers is that Josh Vann did have a very efficient day. We talked about this sort of going into the season. I said, Josh Vann needs something positive to happen early on. We saw that. He had a key first down where he made a guy miss. He had the touchdown catch as well. He had a very efficient day. To me, Chris, the next step is, can Josh Vann have one of those coming out party type games? Like, can he have somebody said, Jalen Brooks needs to sort of get the deep ball monkey off his back, and that you see it happen in a game, and then there's something about just experiencing something for the first time to where it maybe relaxes you a little bit better, just to see it and feel it happen. Can that happen for Jalen Brooks? Or can Josh Vann prove he's ready to take that next step and kind of take over a football game and have a big game? We've seen him, when we talked about it all offseason, we've seen him have flashes. And now he had a solid start to the year last week in week one. Can Josh Vann have a 6, 7, 8 catch day and start to establish himself as being a primary target in this offense? I know those in the building expect Josh to have a really good season. What does that look like? It's a really good season that he catches the football when it's at him. He catches 2 or 3, catches a game. I mean, has 25, 30 receptions this season? Or is it he catches 50 or 60 balls and really becomes a huge part of this offense? I'll be curious to see if he can maybe start to take that step forward. Because somebody's going to have to emerge as the key target in this South Carolina receiving corps. Yeah,
somebody does. And who is it? Is it, we talked about this preseason before game one. Is it a tight end? Like we all went through and gave our pick. I think I should log my own picks better. I think I picked Nick Muse, right? Don't remember who you picked, Wes. But we kind of talked about this. Could it be a tight end? Could it be a back? Does it come from the receiver room? Well, if at the end of the season, Josh Vann is the leading receiver, I would say that's probably a good thing for this offense. Not that it has to be some receiver, but that means he has had a very quality season. How many catches that would take, I don't know at this point. But man, when I look at Josh Vann, and I've always been very high on his potential and his actual ability. It has not happened for him yet at South Carolina. And there are a lot of reasons for that. I go back to, Josh's kind of preseason media availability. He's very honest about it and talked about it. When he first got here, he's sitting behind some really good players. 3 guys that are in the NFL right now. And then he didn't have a great sophomore year. He just kind of had this sophomore slump that really nobody in the program could figure out at the time. And, last year was last year. I think there were some injuries there too. So it hasn't worked out, how anybody envisioned with Josh Vann, but we know this guy has talent. I mean, he's probably one of the more naturally talented receivers on this team. And so he's got the ability to do it. And I thought it was really good to see some flashes of that the other night. He had, that third down catch and run, ran a very smart route. Then you see his athletic ability in the open field. He had the touchdown on a well-run route, caught the ball naturally. Even a small play like the little, we highlighted the play the other day, the Zaquandre White touchdown play where they were lined up together, and Josh, ran a really good kind of pick route to open him up. So I thought he had a really good first game. If he can build off that's huge for Josh and really good for the offense.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, let's change gears here for a second. Then we're going to give our final thoughts on the game. Chris, South Carolina getting a pledge from Brian Thomas Jr., a class of 2022 edge prospect from Winter Garden, Florida. That's Foundation Academy, a guy that South Carolina really has been in, I would say, in pretty good position with for some time. And actually, at first I was going to say they sort of landed him with that official visit this past weekend. I really think the official visit maybe sort of solidified what I think he was already thinking. He went into that with it being South Carolina and West Virginia as his finalists, but really, I know you talked to him after the official visit, then you talked to him after the commitment. I think that it sort of just solidified the things he was looking for anyway. And when he came out of the OV basically saying they had everything I could look for in a program, paraphrasing him, that's usually a pretty good sign for you. And South Carolina officially gets him on board on Thursday late afternoon with him committing to South Carolina.
Yeah, this was an interesting recruitment to follow because, he had been on the board. I think the question going into summer camp in June was, where does he stack up on the board? He's an offer guy, but where does he stack up? And Mike Peterson, the edge coach, wanted to bring him in, and he put on a really nice performance. We were there that day, Wes, of course. Not the tallest guy in the world, 6'1", 6'2", but he can put more weight on. He's very quick off the edge. He almost looks like a really big linebacker, but edge guy that South Carolina's eyeing is kind of that buck or that edge player. He can rush the passer. He's obviously got the NFL bloodlines. His dad, Brian Thomas Sr., played at UAB, so he was not the highest recruited guy either. Ended up playing multiple years for the New York Jets in the NFL and was an excellent outside linebacker. And so, yeah, Thomas, man, I mean, after that performance at camp, it really seemed like South Carolina would continue to prioritize him. They did. They're recruiting several edge players in this class. You look at Thomas Jr., Westmoreland. You also got, of course, Jayshon Barham, James Pierce remain on South Carolina's board. Really no effect there in terms of them continuing to recruit those guys. But Wes, with Brian Thomas's NFL ties with his father, what really appealed to him, among other things at South Carolina, was just the way the program was run and the NFL ties. You mentioned the coaching staff's ties. Mike Peterson, obviously a 14-year NFL veteran, recruited him. And even he gave a shout-out to Chip Morton off the strength staff, former Cincinnati Bengals head strength coach, one of Luke Day's assistants. And so that was something that stood out to him too. So this is a nice get for South Carolina as an edge guy that has some potential as a pass rusher.
Yeah, you see the huddle right there, the film from him. Chris, what are your thoughts maybe as we watch this right now? I mean, this is a kid that I think is your just kind of classic tweener as far as size goes. Like if he was 2.5 inches taller, maybe had just a little bit more length, then he's probably one of these probably 4-star type guys that a bunch of other schools are chasing. So if you're South Carolina, really if you're any school, you're trying to figure out, how much stock do I put into that? How much stock do I put in that evaluation? As you mentioned, South Carolina had him in camp. Like you said, we were there that day. They made this decision to go after him. And I think, man, if you look, yes, the edge spot for South Carolina is a strength right now. But you got to remember, even though, a lot of these guys have another year of eligibility. I mean, J.J. Nigbare, he's a senior. A lot of people think he's a high draft pick guy next year. Aaron Sterling is already a super senior, so he's definitely out. Jordan Strong technically would have another year if he wants it, but, I think you look, man, and these you've got to sort of put yourself in a position if you're South Carolina to re-up the room as far as this edge spot goes.
Yeah, you do. And that's why you're going to see, it's been one of the more common questions in recruiting this year is, hey, if South Carolina, after Donovan Westmoreland was committed to South Carolina, well, first it was what position does he play? And then it's, okay, how many more edge guys? And then definitely after Brian Thomas Jr. committed, it's what does this mean for James Pierce out of North Carolina, Jay-Sean Barham out of the DMV area? And really, South Carolina's continued with the plan of recruiting all those guys because for the reason you mentioned, they've got some really talented edge guys right now. And they do still have some younger ones. You've got a Gilbert Edmond, for example, a guy that could end up being a good player. But you're going to have to replace some guys very soon. So obviously, defensive line, edge guys, pass rushers, that's going to be a priority for this program. So they don't want to turn down guys that can help them there. And they've got some different, body types and some different skill sets in this class. When you look at Thomas physically, he is on the shorter side when you think of that kind of prototypical size, but he's quick, technique, hard worker. This is a guy that gets up very early in the morning to work out. He sees his father as an example and kind of how he prepared himself and made it to the pros and was in the pros for years and years. So I think it's an interesting pickup and someone that, they went all out on after they had him in camp this summer.
Yeah, you see that shot right there, man, of him just chasing down a running back 50 yards down the field. That's something you don't always see from a defensive end, to just get involved in a play that far down the field. Very impressive. And you will see here shortly, if it gets to it, this is a guy that Pete Limbo is going to be thrilled to have on special teams as well. There are several plays here where you're going to see Brian Thomas Jr. On kickoff coverage, and he's the first guy down there. Here it's coming up right now. First guy down the field, sort of eats up the first block that tries to attempt to slow him down, and in several cases here starts the opponent in really negative territory as far as where you would want to be starting if you're on offense. So not that that's why you recruit a guy. I think you're always recruiting this, you're recruiting edge guys to go rush the passer and to play that position. But at a place where special teams are going to be emphasized the way we know they are at South Carolina, I look at this as a little just added bonus, sort of the cherry on top, and going to get a kid like this, in that here's your star player, even at the high school level, putting this type of effort into special teams. That probably bodes well for what South Carolina is trying to build as far as team culture and certainly at that the special teams unit specifically.
For sure. I mean, Brian Thomas Jr., a guy that's willing to play it, obviously puts a lot of emphasis on it himself. And for him, that's a way that at South Carolina that he may be able to see the field early. And he's got, kind of that size and that skill set where you're right. That might be a guy that Pete Limbo is already eyeing and saying, I can use him somehow, on special teams. So that gives you added value, whether it's at the college level for sure, or even when you're looking at the pros, being able to play special teams and investing in that is a positive for these guys.
So, again, that's it. Commitment, Brian Thomas Jr., South Carolina locks in another pledge and gets closer and closer to closing this recruiting class out. Let's shoot back into the game, Chris, as we sort of give our final thoughts here on South Carolina's matchup at ECU. By the way, weather looks, again, amazing. That should not be a factor. So that's a blessing, obviously, for everybody going. I think there's going to be a lot of Gamecock fans there too, man. Like the more I've sort of seen online, the more I've seen on social, I think it'll be a nice little crowd as far as not just ECU and their students being fired up. Not a sellout yet as of 2:30 this afternoon on Friday, but I'll be curious to see if they're able to pack in the final seats there, or maybe some South Carolina fans take that last minute trip up there. Also, maybe the most important question of the weekend, will Colin Taylor and our crew that's going up there participate in some North Carolina barbecue on the trip?
Yes, the fantastic question. We might have to have Colin on Monday for a food recap because let me go ahead and make this little announcement, Wes. I think we're still set for this, right? On Monday, recap show for the ECU game, we're going to be out at Primal Gourmet in West Columbia. Going to go visit those guys, and we're going to be checking out some awesome food out there at Primal. Don't know what we'll have yet. They have a wide selection, but we're going to go out there. So maybe we can have Colin on at some point, and we need to recap what his food selection out there is. Now, Colin, remind me of the barbecue, West. Does he have decent barbecue takes? Like I feel like the plates that he tweets out normally look good to me. But I wasn't sure if he had some asinine barbecue take like he does with some other stuff.
I think he's normally okay on the barbecue takes.
Okay.
So Benjamin says Parker's Barbecue in Greenville. Now, is that one going to be open when they get there is the other question, because it's got to – there. Apparently, I was told there whatever the top barbecue place is in Greenville, North Carolina, is 9 till 2. Like it's lunch only, which, I mean, I love barbecue, but if you're eating barbecue at 9 in the morning, you are a different kind of, you're a creature. Like that's different. I mean, I don't know if you're eating it with your eggs and bacon or what the deal is there, but so they're leaving this afternoon. They're actually leaving in about 30 minutes. They're going to need a barbecue place that serves dinner.
Wes, hold on. You're talking about barbecue in the morning. Have you never had grits and barbecue?
I mean,
no, you haven't. If you said it like that,
I don't think I have. No,
you haven't. If you said that, if there's any uncertainty you've not had it, please do it. Brown's Barbecue, right in Kingstree. Okay, that is what we take that to the beach almost every year, and so you eat it, on sandwiches during the day or whatever. But then you make the grits and barbecue and you put it in there, and it is.
I mean, I'm not against it at all. I just don't know if I know of a restaurant that serves grits and.
No. Yeah, I don't know of a restaurant, but I'm saying you make it on your own. If you're talking about, if your only shot for the barbecue is 9, maybe you need to find grits somewhere else. But I was more talking about at home. But I've eaten barbecue at, 7 something, 8. Grits.
I've had barbecue in an omelet before. That's actually really good.
That's a really good.
That's really good. But yeah, we'll see if they. All right, so everybody in chat, real quick, and we're gonna get back to the game. Plus, Chris, I want your opinion. Thumbs up, thumbs down, or if you're the SEC Network crew, high beams or low beams. I don't know if y'all saw that. High beams or low beams on vinegar-based sauce on barbecue. Go.
Don't hit the actual thumbs down on YouTube though. Like, don't click that button. Just put. Just type out thumbs down or something like that. I am thumbs fully up for the vinegar barbecue. By the way, I love. I would kind of rank them as this. Like, if the barbecue's so good that you don't need sauce, right? That's good. Vinegar base. My second would probably be Alabama white. And mustard, like 80th place.
Oh man, you're gonna catch it for that one. You're gonna catch it for that one. I am thumbs way up as well. I I like all barbecue, honestly, but the vinegar based, or I like the tomato vinegar based, like to where
There you go.
It's vinegary, but it's also got a tomato aspect, not just the plain vinegar, like a vinegar red. I think a lot of places call that. To me, is probably actually my tip top all time favorite. I like the Alabama white on smoked wings better than I do on barbecue, but the Alabama white on smoked wings is just chef kiss amazing. So we'll see what Colin and those. So we've got Colin, we've got I believe which photographer? CJ, I believe, is going. CJ, then Michael Sauls and Kendall Smith, our 2 interns, will all be there. So
solid crew.
Yeah, you're getting. All right, so Chris, Ty is just dying for you to tell us about Dead Soxy. I mean,
I don't know if he's making fun of some of my segues, or
I believe he is, but
okay.
Somebody was making fun of you on the board, by the way, for saying buttery soft.
Yeah, well, that's what, when I think about it, that might be a little weird, but when you're talking about socks. But I'll tell you, that is actually kind of one of Dead Soxy's, I don't want to say a pitch because it's true, but man, they are soft. I mean, you come up with whatever, description that you want to, but Ty, that was actually a very good segue that you made up about the thumbs up after Wes said thumbs up or down. There was also a mention of something that was very solid, so I will segue using that. Let me tell you what's solid. That is Dead Soxy. DeadSoxy.com, DeadSoxy.com. Ty Adams, big Dead Soxy fan apparently. I know you have multiple pairs, so go be like Ty, go be like Chris, go be like Wes. I referred to myself in the third person. That was weird. Go to deadsoxy.com, and guess what? Since you are watching GC Live or you're listening to GC Live, 25% off your entire order. Just go to deadsoxy.com and use the promo code Cocky. All sorts of different kind of socks, dress, athletic, no-show, whatever you want. They'll stay on all day. They're soft, and you get 25% off. So pretty much an awesome deal. Go check those guys out.
I'm a little upset that you called yourself out for using your name in third person, because I was about to call you out for that, but you just preemptively called yourself out. It's okay. All right, let's get back to the game, man. So, all right, quarterback situation going in. If you'd have asked me on Sunday, like, make a prediction, who starts the game?
Yep.
I would have said, I don't know. Then I would have, but you just said, well, just make a prediction. Give me your opinion. I would have leaned Luke Doty.
Right.
The later this week has gone, the more I have leaned Zeb Nolan. And I sort of think that's going to be the case. I think the question right now is, how does Luke Doty feel when he wakes up on Saturday morning? And I think the two scenarios now are I think Nolan's going to start. And is it Nolan just plays, or is it Nolan starts and just plays the whole game, is what I'm trying to say? Or is it that Nolan starts and then Doty feels great, so they sort of implement him into the game and sort of go from there? Beamer said, I believe it was the call-in show on Thursday, that Doty was a little bit sore. And I think that's probably from really pushing that thing for the very first time. And anytime you have any type of like foot injury, any lower leg type injury, it sort of messes with everything else, as far as everything on your leg is connected. So it sort of stiffens up your muscles. It takes a little bit of time, even when you're healthy, to get back to 100% capacity for all those muscles that are connected to where you got hurt. So I think that's the big thing for them. I take them at their word when they say if he is 100%, then yeah, he's going to play some. But if he's 96%, I think you do not play him. I think it's literally he's got to be 100%. And as it's gotten later in the week, you don't want to start a quarterback. I mean, that's one thing that's consistent among every single coach I've ever been around. the guy that's able to take most of the first team reps is gonna be the guy that starts the game. And the closer you get to kickoff, the more that you can project it based on who's getting a lot of those reps. So my guess, probably you end up going Zeb, but whether or not Doty plays at some point, I believe you need a crystal ball, because it's going to depend on how does Four feel Saturday morning when he wakes up, and then how does he feel when he hits the field in pregame.
Yeah, we can all sit here and there could be maybe some exact thought right now of, okay, if everything's good, this is what we're going to do. But then again, you wake up on Saturday, early game, you hit the field, maybe something does or doesn't feel right on Saturday morning, and you adjust from there. So they'll have all scenarios covered. I don't really have that much to add, Wes, onto what you said in terms of how I'm viewing the quarterback situation. I'm right there with you on it in terms of the progression of thinking with Luke and Zeb, and how it looks more and more and sounds more and more like, signs point to Zeb as a starter, and then just go from there. But it's really not possible to say definitively, this is what's going to happen. This is exactly how much Luke Doty's going to play or start or whatever. You cannot say those things with a definitive statement right now, because it's not Saturday and he hasn't hit the field to see how things are.
Shout out Sam, first time tuning in. Sam said, "Is this the consistent content?" Genuine question, which I really don't know if that was like, oh, is this consistently what it is? Like, it's good, or is it consistently like, are these two idiots talking about barbecue every show? Like, I really don't know which way that question was going, but I appreciate everyone who responded as if it was a positive question. So either way, Sam, no matter how you asked, we appreciate you joining us. I guess if you hate it, you're probably out by now, but if you're still there, we appreciate it. AJ asked a question, any tips? So I guess we have to answer. AJ said, why does everyone think Doty should be QB1? Here's the thing, AJ. First of all, they think he should be QB1 because he was QB1 for really the entire offseason. He started the spring as QB1. He maintained QB1 for all of the spring. He maintained QB1 for all the summer, and he was QB1 until he got hurt. So I think if you're judging a guy by, you referenced the end of last year and you say he didn't look good in the spring. Well, how much of the spring did anyone actually see him? You saw him for part of a game where you're rotating quarterbacks in the spring game against your own teammates, and you saw him for 2.5 games last year, one against a Georgia defense that was really, really good. So, and you're talking about a true freshman last year who essentially was playing quarterback for the first month of the season. So I don't think you can judge anything you've seen from Luke Doty. Not that he's not going to have his growing pains. Like, nobody is sitting here crowning him. But look at quarterbacks. Most of them, even Connor Shaw. Connor Shaw was a different quarterback as a sophomore. And then even as a junior and senior, I thought Connor was a different quarterback then than he was as a sophomore. So it takes time, especially if you have a quarterback who is more of an athlete, who didn't actually, he played a couple of years of quarterback in high school, played a lot of receiver as a sophomore, was injured late in his senior year, missed a lot of time then. Reps matter at the quarterback position. So you're talking about a kid that has a ton of upside, busts his tail, was QB1 for a reason, but to judge Doty as far as what he can be as a quarterback and what he will be as a quarterback based on 2.5 games when the season is, by all intents and purposes, over last year, to me is just very short-sighted is the way I would say it.
Yeah, we can't say we don't think – it'd be unfair to say Luke Doty looked great in the spring, right? Because one of the things we talked on the show about a lot, Wes, is when people say Jason Brown looked like the best quarterback in spring. Well, we've consistently pointed out Yeah, that was the only thing in spring that anybody saw was that one game where, one of Jason Brown's throws, a very good throw, but the throw to EJ Jenkins where, it was a freshman walk-on covering the guy, things like that. It's not fair to say any quarterback looked great or anybody Sam. It's not fair to say anybody looked great or anybody looked poor in spring. We did not see enough of spring. The spring practice is a totality of about 15 practices. We saw a little bit of one game that was televised. There were a lot of guys out, due to minor injuries and stuff like that. So I don't think that was fair. Now, does that mean that Luke Doty absolutely tore up and it was completely unstoppable in spring or preseason? No, we're not saying that either. But he did earn the starting position and keep that starting position. And last year, to say that those were subpar circumstances for a freshman quarterback is the understatement of the century. I mean, you bring in a guy and he's playing, the first game, he comes in, halftime of the Mizzou game, and he played all right, fairly well, given those circumstances. Remember, the team is not good at that point. Things have kind of fallen apart. The personnel offensively is not there in terms of help. Next week, he plays against Georgia and goes 18 for 22 for 190 yards. That's pretty good against that Georgia defense. So then he played one more game against Kentucky. So I agree with Wes. Not enough there to make a snap judgment on this is exactly what Luke Doty's going to be. Because you know what? We don't know the other quarterbacks on the team. We don't have a big enough sample size on those guys either, to make definitive statements on them.
Yeah, and Sam, we weren't trying to roast you. Although we will roast our usuals get roasted a little bit just because it's fun. But we were just wondering if you were roasting us, like if you were low key roasting us, or if you're like, oh, these guys are pretty good, or you're like, oh, these guys suck. Either way, I don't know, but we welcome you, man. We are every day. We try to do every day at 2:00. Sometimes we are late. Tuesdays we're going to be a little bit later than normal because that's the day of the Beamer press conference, and it always goes to about 1:45, 1:50, and then you're trying to get home, trying to get set up. Those will be more like 2:30. Off season, we go Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 2:00. Sometimes we don't do Friday show, but during the season, generally you're looking at Monday through Friday at 2:00. Alex asking if there will be a game day chat tomorrow. Yes, there will. We will pretend it's on game day. To be honest, it's going to already be recorded today. It will be up on the site very, very early, probably before you get up, Alex, on Saturday. It'll already be up. It'll already be scheduled, and hopefully y'all will watch that as well. Chris, did you give a score prediction? Did you give the final prediction? I know you said South Carolina wins, but I don't know if you did. So, all right, let's all, if you're in the chat, give us your score prediction. I wonder if anybody's going to pick ECU that's a Gamecock fan. I don't think they will, to be honest with you. Chris, give me your 2 to 3 sentences on the game and a final score.
I think the difference ends up being South Carolina's defensive line. ECU will make some plays. I think they'll score, get their skill position guys out. I think South Carolina does enough on the ground, just enough through the air. 27-21 Carolina is what I got.
Okay, what did I say? I try to be consistent. I have South Carolina 31, ECU 20. So we have them scoring, a similar amount.
Yep.
And Alex says he's now going to make it a goal to wake up before it's released. I like the effort there, Alex. But yeah, man. And ultimately, I think whether it's a close game or South Carolina wins by a couple of scores is going to be about turnovers. Can South Carolina minimize the bad things? Like, can they minimize mistakes, cut down on some of those dumb, as Beamer would say, penalties? I think that still is irking him to this day.
Yep.
The number of penalties. Did you notice, by the way, on the rewatch, this is one of those things you don't get when you're in the stadium, that the announcers who get sort of that extra insight before a game said that one thing Beamer kept talking about going into the game, he's like, man, a lot of these week 1 games, teams make a lot of bad penalties. So it was like emphasized leading into the game, let's not be one of those teams that makes a lot of bad penalties. And then boom, lo and behold, it happens.
Yeah. Yeah, he was not a fan of all that stuff. So there's no doubt that was I guess re-emphasized in throughout this week of preparation. Corrections, Sunday Beamer kind of went through, not on Sunday, but their Sunday practices, quote unquote, very, very light, right? But a lot of just corrections and things like that. There's no doubt that was maybe the top emphasis, Wes, as far as correcting those things. And it'll be important for this game.
Yep. So I've got 3120. Check out Gamecock Central for all of your pregame, during game, and post-game content. We've got a lot of great stuff planned. We've got, I believe, 4 people going up there to cover it from ECU. We've got behind the scenes. Hey, follow us on TikTok as well. If you're a TikToker, follow us on there. Look up Gamecock Central. We're trying to hit all of the social media platforms that we can. So go check that out. For Chris, I'm Wes. We'll see you on Monday, and I will see you on Saturday for a little quick game day chat right before the show. Appreciate the support, as always, and y'all have a good one.